Is this something where we need a unanimous opinion on that? Is this something where we can say, here's a couple of key decision makers? We need to have that resolved. Well, as we mentioned last time in our conversation around the governance of a family office, as we get to that point, we really want to make sure that the governance feels practical and not just as a theoretical exercise. We really want it to serve as a bit of that air traffic control type of component to say, with all these different experts, with all these different family members, with all these different businesses, perhaps trust, perhaps nonprofit institutions that we're involved with, how does it all come together? And so there is a lot of dynamics of saying what needs to be at which air level, who's running out of fuel, what needs to land, what needs to take off. That's what we see a lot in that family office space. And so we really want to make sure that there's someone that has that as a key role because otherwise it is oftentimes left to the family to try to triangulate that. And what we find in that particular space is it becomes a bit of the telephone game. If you've ever played the telephone game, something starts at the beginning and it gets relayed through each person as it moves through the line. But now, along the way, we're now adding different experts in different fields who have their own frameworks, their own sort of perspectives, and something is bound to get lost in translation if it's being done one by one. So we really work to pull all of these experts together in a bit of an informal board of advisors type of structure to say, how does the family have a couple of conversations, not 27, one by one? And let's get everybody around the table. And part of what we see is the types of decisions that family office needs to oversee to make sure it's well run is who's going to be the decision maker. And that may be multiple decision makers. It may be shared decision ownership, but who gets that vote? And but we also see, especially as it comes to the next generations or folks that may not have been as actively involved, it may not be a matter of who gets a vote, but also who gets a voice. And that can be a nice progression, especially for younger family members or folks that have not been as involved to start to articulate what is it that they would like to see in the family scope while they're still building expertise to have a vote in those types of decisions. But then we also want to have a roadmap that says, how do we resolve conflicts? Because it is inevitable that at some point there's going to be a difference of opinion. So how do we resolve that? Is this something where we need a unanimous opinion on that? Is this something where we can say, here's a couple of key decision makers? We need to have that resolved. Otherwise, this can be something that gets stuck and mired in a certain limbo. And again, back to the air traffic control analogy, if at some point it circles the airport too long, it may run out of fuel. And it's the kind of thing that we see can end up in lawsuits or very severe family dysfunction if there's not a clear roadmap saying, here's how we're going to make decisions. It's decided in advance before we need to get there. And then this comes back to also the family charter, because what we really want to look at there, in the same way that my business partner and I look at our charter and what our mission and vision and value statements, when it comes time to make a key decision, we anchor back to that to say, okay, who are we? What do we stand for? How are we going to make those decisions? So it's not sort of a heat of the moment type of decision, but it's something to say, here's how we're going to govern ourselves, and here's how the frameworks, here's the guardrails around how decisions get made.